This one's Dr. Peter Hotez speaking at the UN a few years back. I haven't listened to it yet, but, oh, not the UN, the World Health Organization, the WHO. So, Hotez, I expect it to be entertaining. Food for thought is what we're looking for here.
So the first speaker is Dr. Peter Hotez, who I'm very honored to introduce from the Baylor College of Medicine, National School of Tropical Medicine. So Dr. Hotez, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. O'Brien. I'd like to make a few remarks this afternoon in which I bring a unique perspective to the vaccine confidence discussion. I'm a pediatrician scientist who develops new vaccines for the poverty-related infections known as the neglected tropical diseases, and I've had the good fortune to collaborate for decades with the World Health Organization on both our vaccines and the global governance to control or eliminate these conditions that literally affect more than 1 billion people in the world who live in poverty. But with my wife, Anne, we're also the parent of 4 adult kids, including Rachel, who is now a 26-year-old woman who has autism and significant intellectual disabilities. And the reason why being an autism parent is relevant is that a major basis for vaccine hesitancy in both North America and Europe, and now moving globally, is the false assertion that vaccines cause autism. And in response to that, I've written a new book called Vaccines Did Not Cause Rachel's Autism, which, as you can imagine, is putting me in the witness protection program. But it tells a personal story about Rachel's life and challenges finding employment and mental health counseling. But also it's a book that does a deep dive into the science of both vaccines and autism. It details studies on over 1 million children, reporting how children who receive their vaccines are no more likely to become autistic than children who are not vaccinated. Conversely, it also summarizes the evidence showing that children on the autism spectrum are no more likely to have been vaccinated than children not on the spectrum. It goes step by step, refuting each of the major false claims, showing that MMR vaccine does not cause autism, as was first alleged in 1998. Then showing how thimerosal preservative, now removed from many vaccines, also does not cause autism, nor does spacing vaccines close together cause autism, nor does aluminum adjuvants in vaccines cause autism. So we're in this kind of Pyrrhic game of global health whack-a-mole where we knock one down and another one pops up, and each time the scientific community responds. I also go into depth explaining how autism occurs through the action of more than 100 autism genes expressed in early fetal development, and how through whole exome sequencing we've now identified one of those genes in Rachel, encoding part of the neuronal cytoskeleton and neuronal connections. The point being that autism begins in early pregnancy, well before a child ever receives the vaccines. And then I go on to debunk other false claims made about autism and refute statements that vaccines cause teenage depression and suicide or autoimmune disease, or there are toxic ingredients in vaccines. As you might imagine, the book and subsequent media interviews have put me and my family on the front lines of the vaccine hesitancy discussion and have caused me to sometimes have difficult discussions, even a few public confrontations, with individuals who passionately believe that vaccines injure children, or even that autism itself is nothing more than a form of vaccine injury. So what do I say to worried parents? My major points include the simple truths that vaccines represent one of humankind's greatest achievements, responsible for the eradication of smallpox, the near elimination of polio, and dramatic declines of deaths from measles and other killer childhood infections. I write and speak about how, as a pediatric house officer on the Children's Service of the Massachusetts General Hospital during the late 1980s, I went from taking care of a terribly ill or permanently impaired child from Haemophilus influenza type B meningitis on a weekly or monthly basis to personally watching this disease disappear from America, so that today we mostly talk about Hib meningitis purely for historic interest. I also point out, however, that our public health victories achieved through vaccination are fragile. so that vaccine-preventable diseases can return if vaccine rates decline. We've already heard this to be true of measles, because the measles virus is so highly contagious, particularly for infants under the age of 12 months, not yet old enough to be vaccinated. In 2017, I wrote in the New York Times how measles could return to Texas and other states where we've had a steep rise in parents accepting their kids from vaccination. Then in 2018, in the Public Library of Science, we identified 15 urban hotspots where kindergartners are not being vaccinated. So far in 2019, measles has returned to 7 of those 15 sites. Today in the United States and Europe, there is no reason why measles or other vaccine-preventable diseases should be allowed to return. And I know the leadership of the Department of Health and Human Services and CDC feels the same, and look forward to working together with them on this front. Ultimately, we need to reinforce the message of vaccine safety and remind parents there's a lot of misinformation out there. They dominate the internet, at least 480 misinformation websites, to be exact, 480 misinformation websites, all amplified on social media, as well as e-commerce platforms that promote dozens of fake books alleging phony autism links and other false assertions. I love coming to the World Health Assembly. Here I meet my public health heroes, like the ones that you see in front of you today, committed to vaccinating the world's children and ensuring the safety of our global vaccine supply. Right now in 2019, vaccine hesitancy is a looming issue, and one that could threaten the extraordinary progress since Gavi, WHO, UNICEF, and DHHS federal agencies recommitted to vaccines almost 2 decades ago. But I have great confidence in our leadership to ensure that this will not happen. We'll ultimately achieve important disease elimination targets in the coming years. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you, Peter.